Serious detectives / police officers of Reddit, what case did you not care to find the answer? Why? I had to actually think about this question for a while, and it occurred to me there hasn't been any major crimes where we as a department don't perform our due diligence. Shooting, rape, etc., even if the victim doesn't want press charges, will be investigated through to the end in the event the victim comes back later and changes their mind. Now minor crimes, tons of those. Just this past weekend a guy's car was just destroyed. 2013 Chrysler 300, pretty nice. Girl's name etched into both sides, all windows smashed. Huge rock through the sunroof. Massive, huge dent to the hood from something. All 4 tires flat. Just destroyed this car. Guy tells us his ex-girlfriend did it. Ex-girlfriend is mad because he has a new girlfriend. Go over to ex-girlfriend's apartment, same apartment complex, eviction notice on the door. Ex-girlfriend claims she had no idea, doesn't know who did it. We all know she did it. Ex-girlfriend explains this guy left her and his 4 kids and ran off with neighbor chick. Stopped paying the power, gas, rent, etc. without telling her. Comes home today to find out bills haven't been paid and they are getting evicted. She had quit her last job because he was a controlling dick and didn't like her working. Just recently started working again. Alright, kind of feel bad but she still did something illegal, so going to investigate further. Go back to talk to car owner again. Guy is pissed we didn't arrest her and is now pissing me off, just being a dick. Tell him we are going to contact the rental office to look at the cameras. I mentioned that his kids are getting evicted. Condescending, self-centered prick corrects me and tells me only 3 of the 4 are his kids. That it's not his problem, those are her kids and she needs to take care of them. We had words. He threatened to complain, never did or hasn't yet. I'm not going out of my way to investigate further. I'm sure a detective will get around to it in a few weeks. Too bad. I know from previous calls the cameras at the apartment complex only retain video for about 3 to 4 days. Edit. For those of you who seem to think I somehow enabled someone to avoid some sort of lengthy prison sentence, your ignorance of the my state's criminal justice system is amazing. People don't go to prison for criminal mischief, especially first-time offenders. At worst she was looking at restitution and 1 to 3 years probation. When she didn't pay, the restitution case would have been closed and the amount referred to the state collections office. That being said, this case would have never been prosecuted. First, if she admitted that she did it, she may well have had a defense to the charge. She claimed that she used her tax return to help buy the car, which he didn't dispute. That makes it shared property. You are free to destroy your own shit. Second, this guy never intended to press charges. He needs her to take care of his kids. He sure as fuck wasn't going to do it. All that would have happened if she had gone to jail is she would have lost her job for missing work, then been out in 2 to 3 days. He would have never shown up to court. This is the first time I had met either party, however, people on my crew were well acquainted with them. This guy just wanted to use the system to get her arrested because he had been arrested 4 times in the past 14 months for domestic violence related charges. Initially when I got there he was calm, polite and acting all the victim. The second I come back without her in cuffs he lost his shit. Every time that bitch calls you I get arrested, why the fuck isn't she going to jail? 11 days prior he had kicked her door in, which was still evident as the entire fucking door frame was broken away from the wall and she was using a 2x4 to keep her door shut. Her landlord didn't want to fix it because it was the second time in 6 months he had kicked it in. According to the report where he had kicked it in, he was upset because he thought she was with another guy and wouldn't answer the door. Which was strange, because he told me that they had been separated for months and months and she was just a jump on, jump off? I don't know, first time I had ever heard that term. Either way, he had been arrested 4 times for various domestic violence related offenses and she never shows up to court because she needs him out of jail for money to support kids. Same thing would have happened in this case. He just wanted to finally see her get arrested. I'm pretty amazed at how naive many people on Reddit are. The peak power human muscles can output is about 3 times more than what we'd consciously consider our maximum. Our brains impose the limits on how much muscle power we can use at any given time to prevent us ripping our muscles to shreds. These limits can be overcome in situations of sufficient perceptual dissociation from reality, for example dissociative drugs like PCP and severe mental illness. This is the reason for cases like a mother lifting a car off of her child, or certain mental patients needing more than 10 interns to restrain them. Sadly, in so many cases, the shooting victim won't tell you at what location he was shot, let alone the circumstances surrounding the shooting. The first part of the investigation often involves disproving the victim's account. Guy says he was shot on 5th Street and walked to the hospital, but you have reports of sounds of gunshots on 15th Street and have video of him being dropped off in an Impala. Many times it's a case of retribution or neighborhood beefs, where an accurate narrative by the victim would require the backstory that he shot the suspect's friend the week before. It's disheartening when the main initial thrust of the shooting investigation is to figure out where it happened and why. And then the victim goes AWOL and provided a bad address and phone number, so then you need to hunt him down to convince him to tell you what really happened. This all takes hours and hours away from investigating lesser crimes where the victims are honest and forthcoming. Edit. If you're thinking if he doesn't care, then why should we? Yeah, we often think that way. But ultimately there's a guy out there shooting people we need to find and get off the street. Worst ever for me was a guy who tortured his girlfriend's 3 small children until one died. The scene was subtle yet horrific when we started putting the pieces together. The children initially wouldn't speak about the suspect at all, and now a couple years later they only make cryptic statement like, if I did X, he would come and do Y. It was the only time in my career I've seen a cause of death ruled as torture. Did she get in trouble? Gosh, I hope not. A terminal illness before you get out of your 40s? Hi there, cancer, ALS, Huntington's, and the like. I might want a morphine overdose, too. Yikes. I'm 47 and was just diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. I'll be lucky if I make it to 50, but my friends have promised to help me end it when the time comes. Edit. Thanks for your kind words. I was diagnosed on August 5th this year. Here are some before and after photos. Jesus, yeah, that's pretty sad. As a dude in his 30s now, who has had bouts with depression his whole life, I can tell you I've contemplated suicide on more than one occasion, all when I was much younger. I'm okay now. But the one thing that stopped me was thinking about the hurt and the heartache I would cause my parents and my family. As much as I hated myself at the time, I couldn't convince myself to do something that's selfish. You know what, dude? I'm a 34-year-old who's battled depression and suicidal thoughts, and still do. I have 2 kids, a wife, a great job, and I'm healthy, but I have a hard time overcoming my mental issues. I've wanted to end my own life for a long time. About 2 years ago, my dad shot himself in the mouth. He didn't leave a note or call anyone. He just checked out. He never even got to meet his youngest grandson, who was born a week after he died. After dealing with the aftermath of his death, seeing the toll it took on my brother, my grandmother, and my uncles, I've decided that I can't place that burden on my family no matter how bad it gets. I've committed to doing everything in my power to prevent myself from going through with it. Medication, therapy, counseling, self-improvement exercises. I just can't bear the thought of my family dealing with the pain that I experienced. Keep focused and remember that somebody somewhere needs you to be alive, whether you realize it or not. PM me if you want to talk. I worked with a guy who was a former CO. He told me about one of the inmates who was raped and assaulted by his parents. He was in prison for killing them, and based on his story, I don't think he was wrong. They fucking put razor blades in his asshole. It's really astonishing how much someone's childhood can affect how far they go in life. I went to an alternative school, which is basically where they send all the kids that get expelled from regular schools. I remember one time my teacher asked a class of about a dozen students to raise their hand if they lived with both parents, and I was the only one that could put my hand up. My parents lived together but were already planning their divorce. If you come from a broken home, the odds are definitely stacked against you in life. Somebody will correct me or have more information, but some metals will become far harder after being worked on. I am fairly certain aluminum becomes work hardened, and I think steel does too. Not certain if this would apply, but it probably does. This would mean that it would be easier to bend it out of shape than it would be to bend it back. As a police officer, none of those things bother me, and I love a good pursuit. What gets me is seeing animals and young children get hurt. One of the worst memories I have was of a fire at a horse stable. Every stall had a different padlock on it from the specific owner because there was a good chance the horse would get stolen otherwise. My 2 partners and I had one pair of bolt cutters between us, and we were cutting locks and trying to get as many horses out as we could before the building burned down around us. Luckily we were able to save about 30 horses, but listened to about 20 others burn to death. It was by far the most horrifying sound I've ever heard. A hooker with a nasty attitude screamed at me for 15 minutes about how a check one of her less scrupulous clients had given her had bounced. Considering she didn't know who he was or where we could find him, and we weren't about to set up 24/7 surveillance to identify her John, we told her in no certain terms, to next time, take cash. Child porn is the worst in general. It's one of those things where you want the bad guy to go away, but you really don't care to find the evidence. I live near the headquarters of the FBI, and I know some people have seen some shit. Shout out to the people who work with Interpol and work on international cases like in parts of the Innocence Lost Project or the US Department of Health and Human Services Administration of Children and Families. Often they find clear evidence of abuse, but can't do anything about it cause it's either not illegal in some shithole country or it's not enforced. Check out International Justice Mission for that. I still remember a story from an ACF guy about how US corporate charities would go into India and find child sex slaves, and instead of reporting it they'd just distribute condoms and move along. It must be horrible not being able to do anything about this. If all the store has is a short video of a dude wearing a hoodie walking out a store with $40 worth of merchandise, there's not going to be much investigating. And thank you for that. As an private organized retail crime investigator, I wouldn't have a job if the police actually pursued retail crime on their own. Even I wouldn't bother with $40 worth of stuff tbh. That is up to the store detectives and management to catch in the moment if they can. We don't do full-scale investigations unless it's thousands of dollars. Not worth our time or burning up our credibility with law enforcement contacts for when we need a warrant/arrest. For the shoplifters out there, I still wouldn't do it. You'll eventually get caught by a store detective and you'll get fucked. It's just that chances are if you get away with it initially no one is pursuing it other than passing your picture around. Again, unless you are stealing thousands. Had a guy report he had been kidnapped and drugged against his will. He had managed to escape and had run across town to evade his captors. I was able to rendezvous with him and bring him back to the station. He told me this grand story about being taken across the county and by people he thought were his family no less. When I asked him their names and where he had been held, he got all sheepish and said he didn't want to make enemies and just wanted to go home. I started driving him towards his home and dropped him off at a gas station just outside my jurisdiction. Sorry, neighboring detachment. He's your problem now. My mom was a small-town reporter for years, and she said there were always ought to be killids, or OBKs for short, around, people who had the cops called on them repeatedly for assault, domestic violence, child abuse, etc. if they died because they committed the same damn crime they committed 20 times before, like if, for example, a guy who had the cops called on him 5 times for domestic disturbances threatened his girlfriend with a gun and then later the gun went off while he was cleaning it. Well, they had an explanation. Why dig further? The case of why I got fired. A co-worker of mine had done something wrong. Nothing horrible, but a mere stupid mistake. I was there at the time, but I did not care. I told him to pay better attention next time, and be done with it. But my superiors did not agree. They wanted him gone, so they ordered me to make the facts worse than they actually were. I was supposed to lie for them. I refused on the spot, and they told me that could harm my career. I said I did not care, and that officers from the Royal Army should not behave in such a way. Before I knew it, they found someone else that lied about what he did, and about what I did. As we had no way of disproving what they told people we did, we both got fired without honors. It was done publicly, stripped of rank and honors. We both laughed and walked away, said this is not the kind of people we wanted to work for in the first place. And that they could go and fuck themselves. We were both military police officers. I got a new job shortly after that and made almost twice the money I did there. Best decision of my life, and I have no regrets for not putting in a false statement. So I decided not to press charges, because we had no way of proving we did not do the things they claimed we did. My grandfather's shotgun, he has passed away, it's my dad's now, was stolen from us. It was only returned because police serving a warrant found it in a man's possession. It was a neighbor like 7 houses away from us. Police said the chances of it getting returned really just were slim to none, depending on if it was used in a crime very recently after it was taken. The dude getting arrested was really just incredibly lucky. The shotgun wasn't sawed or altered in any way, thankfully. Most people would be surprised if we said we found stolen cars and returned them to the owner without much investigation afterwards. Doesn't surprise me. I have an aunt whose car was stolen. The perp left his driver's license and other personal property in the vehicle. The police couldn't be bothered to follow up. It's like, seriously? Open and shut case, his ID was in the damned car. Why don't you follow up on those sorts of things? It seems a much better use of resources than trying to farm money on speeding tickets and non-violent offenders. For all of those saying reasonable doubt. He'll say his wallet was stolen. Well, that's what I mean by follow up on it. The cops did not fingerprint. They did not question the guy. They did not even take his personal items, they were left in the car for my aunt to dispose of as she saw fit. They could have easily. I'd prefer not to have it back at that point. Depending on the goriness and level of decomposition of the body, I'd say it's likely the insurance company would be willing to write it off as a total loss. If it was even insured against theft, the insurance would have paid out about 11.5 years ago. You don't, it would rather become the property of the insurance company. What happens if it's life insurance? Like, what if a family member goes missing and is presumed dead, then turns up 10 years later? Edit. I wonder what happened when that Malaysian Airlines flight went missing. What if those people were found? That's what made me think of this question. Yup. This is what I was asking for. Thanks. I know some of the police that work the Tory Stanford case in Ontario, Canada. Years later, they're still messed up over it. Look it up. That's the kind of case you want solved but don't want to have to delve deep into. I feel bad for those folks. Edit. It's Stafford. Stupid autocorrect. If it wasn't for the NSW police, Australia, my little boy and I probably wouldn't be alive today. They did and continue to do the best they could saving us from my ex. 2 years later, still living in fear, but we are safer now because of them. Much respect. I'm someone who gets checked if I'm driving a stolen vehicle twice a year, and I've never been stopped, sticked or ordered out of the car. They sort of glass in the VIN and ask me, did this used to be purple? Life pro tip: if you change the appearance of a vehicle, and don't change it on the title, now and again a cop checks if you stole that shit, or just maybe are using wrong plates. Either way, color matters. Rock spider. You find them in little cracks. Jesus Christ, you'll have some fucked up coping mechanisms. You should see the shit doctors come up with. FLK, funny looking kid. There is something about the child's features that indicate a genetic problem like being retarded, but no other signs or symptoms. You put that if the child is just passing through or you know you won't see him again / very often / exclusively so other doctors know to keep an eye on his / her development. 'Cause feel, please, could you turn down your video game? It's bothering us. I wasn't playing video games. My girlfriend was with me. I'm not playing. Well, whatever you do, turn it down already. Turns out it was raining. My mother is not the brightest woman in the world. Unfortunately, I think that's probably the case for somewhat major crimes as well. Even in not so big cities. I was rear-ended by a drunk driver who got out, threatened me, then drove away. I called the police, and they said they would have someone call me in a couple of days to file a report. Luckily, the guy got picked up for a DUI a couple miles down the road when he crashed into the fence of an Air Force base. However, the police told me they didn't have the resources to go after him for leaving the scene of the accident. So what you're saying is I should start shoplifting? I'd start at Lowe's. They will not do anything to you if you steal from them. They are told not to confront someone who has stolen something. Once this guy opened the bottom of a toilet box and stuffed thousands of dollars worth of goods in the box. They don't touch the box, just uses that handheld scanner to ring it up. So they never knew, until he tried to leave and the alarm went off. At first they said it was fine to just go on, but a manager happened to be there and checked the box. The guy walked out as they were opening the box and no one said a word to him as he walked away. There's a British TV show called Cracker from the 90s. It starred Robbie Coltrane, Hagrid to You Youngins, and Christopher Eccleston, and it's terrific. In one episode early on, Cracker is investigating a disappearance of a teenage boy, and as he thought it might be a suicide, and he says, "Suicide is a bomb under the kitchen table." I saw that episode once, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I can't even say how much it's affected me. I think of it any time I even begin to ponder self-harm. Can you elaborate on the meaning of that quote? I think it means by committing suicide you're leaving a bomb in a common area for your family and friends to stumble on. I think it also refers to the fact that a bomb under the kitchen table is a destruction of the place where you feel safest. It's the obliteration of everything normal in your life, at the time you're least expecting it. It turns the commonplace into a trauma site, and there's nothing you can do to prepare against it. To go a bit lighter than many of the other respondents. Rolling along during early evening of a mid-shift patrol, got a radio call from dispatch. Patrol 1, dispatch, respond to 1234 XYZ Street, contact complainant. Recognizing the address, I replied back, dispatch, Patrol 1, mark us en route. Loud noise complaint yet again from that address. Patrol 1, dispatch, that's a negative. Subject has a damage complaint. Intriguing. The Joe Dirt level subject of that address had been a frequent flyer member of our seemingly nightly list of loud noise complaints for the area, always having beer-fueled parties with his buddies, often dragging his large speakers out onto his back patio to entertain themselves, and the surrounding 3 blocks, with their taste in tunes. Pulling up out front, we report on scene and exit the patrol car and start to approach the house, sort of surprised at It being so quiet for this time of night. Subject opens the front door and steps out to greet us dressed in the standard attire for Joe Dirt calls. Jeans, no shirt, no shoes. It's almost like a uniform. He immediately starts to yell at us. Always coming around to bother us when we're just having a little fun. But where were you when I needed you to do your job? You are right, Joe. This is a change to have you calling us instead of the normal routine. What's going on? Here, I'll show you. He then walks around the side of the house, much to my relief, as I was fairly sure we'd find piles of paperwork inspiring problems if we'd gone through the house, to the side gate and into the backyard. Bemused, we follow along, coming to a stop as Joe says I just got home to find this, points with both hands and just starts cursing. His 2-tower speakers were there, but the wires had been cut. Several times. Each of the speakers themselves bore several stabbing holes. From the size of the holes, I'm guessing someone used one of those large Rambo knives to vent their frustrations over lost sleep. To top it all off, as I stepped closer to get a better look at the damage, the smell of gasoline hit me. They had doused both towers with gas and even poured some inside each one. Well, Joe, this all looks like the work of someone with some emotional investment in what they were doing. If these had been people, we'd be looking for the girlfriend or wife. Obviously this was someone who knew you. Do you have anyone you've made angry that you know of? My partner devolved into an unexpected coughing fit, hiding his mouth behind his fist. Pretty sure he owed me a Coke for having made him laugh. Joe was doing his best impersonation of a groundhog with the comment flying high over his head. No way, man. This had to be one of those assholes that always calls you whenever I have a few friends over. You should pull that list to find out who did this. Great idea, Joe. We'll do that. Here, let us get a few photos. We already have your info on file, so we should be able to put the report together pretty easy. Minutes later, seatbelting back into the car as we calling in clear to dispatch, I look over at my partner. Dinner? He nodded. Dinner. I hate SIDS. I have had to deal with a few of those in my time as an MP. Car chases are awesome, the first time. After that you realize how fucking stupid they are. Edit. Also, one time I had to pick up a soldier who had shot his team leader and a friend in Iraq/Afghanistan. It was about a 10-minute drive from where I picked him up. I didn't say anything. I felt if I did I would get too emotional towards him on his actions. So I just kept my mouth shut. Edit. Word. One lazy Sunday afternoon duty in North London, I got a call to a male going berserk in a residential house. As soon as I entered the house, having been let in by his girlfriend, this chap kicked off. He flew at me and I was forced to use my truncheon to quieten him down. As he lay on the floor, though I know you. He was a member of a well-known 70s English pop group. Hey, this is a first, I thought. He then got up and tried to strangle me, and for several minutes, it seemed a lifetime, I was fighting for my life. Luckily the cavalry came in time, and before he knew it, he was covered in police. The London ambulance service arrived and a medical option was given. He's fucking mad and someone had the bright idea to restrain him in a spinal restraint. He was put in said restraint and seeing him burst the leather straps was quite disconcerting. Hey ho, we all jumped on him again. Ended all right in the end. It was a very heavy LSD trip that went wrong. He was very apologetic when he came out of it. Just makes me want to go hug my kids. I know what it's like to get mad at a kid. I'm an angry person. I figure anger isn't bad, it's what you do with it that can be bad. I have yelled at my kids, that's normal. I've been so mad I've wanted to hit them. I don't. I can imagine getting angry and hitting a kid. I've got more self-control than that, but I can see how that happens. Swinging a kid by the ankles and into furniture? I can't fathom this. There's just too much actual thinking there. You can't have that thought and not be able to say, nah, that's too much. That was not a child to them. That was not a human being to them. They were missing something that even my ragey ass has. I'm so sorry you have to deal with that kind of shit. What, did he keep paying the registration every year? Or do you mean the last active registration was in his name and they never changed the plates and nobody ever ran them? Not really. Lived in Detroit. The response time for hey, 4 guys all dressed in black just kicked in my neighbor's door was about 90 minutes. We found your stolen car. Hear you. Nah, we're not pressing charges. He said you lent it to him. Never saw that guy in my life. Yeah, well, your car is in the lot. Pay the impound fee and you can pick it up. We're not pressing charges. They found the car. I have no clue how. We were completely stunned. We got it back. Working at a monitoring company. PD in Houston are the worst to deal with. The dispatcher sounds like they hate their job and don't take info correctly. Also rude and take their time when a crime is taking place. California is a terrible place for us because they have the weirdest laws for homeless and how an affidavit works out. It's never good for the monitoring company and never good for the business the crime is happening in. Other states comply when we say what we do and that crime is happening live, they stay on the phone and even ask for an email to send raw footage to. Not Cali, not Houston. For example, Cali today did not let us dispatch out to a property where an individual was out on the floor in front of a shopping center passed out drunk. The dude had bottles around him and was knocked out, not clear if asleep or dead. They stated they couldn't dispatch out to the property. Because they can't disrupt people's sleep even if they're out on private property drunk off their ass. We reviews and the guy appeared to be alive just asleep. In Houston, when my position was to dispatch PD out to a property, I've had multiple dispatchers stall me, take unnecessary information about what's taking place and have an attitude when I tried to give them more information about the individual's whereabouts and clothing. I was hung up on after attempting to gather information of ETA of the officers, and when I called dispatch back trying to figure out the operator's name or number, I was hung up on again. Just the main things I've noticed since I have to work with police, dispatch, and detectives since I saw the crime. Have worked at the monitoring company for about 1.5 years.
Hey guys, this is the Rogue YouTuber here. I recently had a big change in my life. I had a baby daughter. Here she is. If you could do me a favor and remember to hit the subscribe button and bang the bell, I'm hoping to really create a YouTube channel that really gets people excited and brings people the best, most interesting content collated from across the internet. I'm saving up to save my little girl to Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department, so please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.